The banking sector is now very interested in the environmental and social performance of its clients. So before banks lend money to large-scale projects, they want to make sure that those projects are environmentally and socially responsible.
So Francis, last October, the United Nations adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, which include a number of environmental targets. Is there any way for corporations to incorporate these environmental targets?
Well, yes. The interesting thing about the Sustainable Development Goals is that they're goals that address environmental, economic, and social issues. And there's an ambition that these are goals not just for our governments, but goals for all sectors of society, including business, including corporations. So there are some goals on environmental issues like climate change, like biodiversity conservation, both on land and in the sea, but there are also goals on sustainable production and consumption and goals on the role of trade and finance for implementing sustainable development. So in fact, embedded in the goals is a huge opportunity for business to promote responsible trade, responsible finance, responsible production and consumption processes that mitigate climate change, that conserve biodiversity, both marine biodiversity and terrestrial biodiversity.
So there's a number of environmental certificates for commodities. Can corporations use these certificates to promote sustainable production?
Well, yes, indeed. There's quite a number of environmental standards, certification schemes, certificates for responsible commodity production, timber, fisheries, agricultural products, even mining products, production processes in general. And indeed, this is one of the real opportunities, is to use these types of standards and certification schemes to articulate to your consumers, to government regulators, to investors, that you're attempting to produce products responsibly and to source inputs into your production processes from responsible sources. So the whole world of certification and standards is one really big opportunity for corporations to actually walk the talk of sustainable development in the way they go about their business.
So is there any of these environmental certificates for the banking sector?
For the banking sector, it's interesting because we often think about certificates for products like timber or for agricultural products. We'll talk about organic agriculture or certified timber. But actually the banking sector is now very interested in the environmental and social performance of its clients. So before banks lend money to large-scale projects, they want to make sure that those projects are environmentally and socially responsible. And the main one, they have the main approach that they use is been developed by the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. And the International Finance Corporation has a set of performance standards, they're called performance standards, for environmental and social issues. And so now what we're seeing more and more is that the companies also need to be environmentally and socially responsible because their lenders are expecting it. And the lenders themselves then have standards of performance that they're expecting companies to adhere to.
And finally, regarding plastic in the oceans, is there anything corporations can be doing to help?
Well, plastics in the oceans is a very interesting example of the challenges we face on sustainability, because the oceans are a common resource. They're open to everybody, but through the way we're running our economies, they're also becoming a common sink or a common disposal for products that shouldn't be there, like plastics. And there are very serious environmental risks of plastics in the ocean. It gets into the food chain, it gets into the fish, it gets into the sea mammals, and so on. What companies are talking about and increasingly doing is looking to keep the stuff from getting there in the first place. And so yes, we do need to clean up our oceans, but we need to prevent the disposal of plastics in the first place. And this becomes almost a supply chain engineering problem, whether you're talking about the plastic containers for liquids that we use, water, milk, and so on, the plastics that go into cosmetics, the plastics that go into our clothing. Can we actually recycle, reuse these on land and on shore? In fact, this is an example that if we don't get corporations involved, we're not going to solve this problem. This is a problem that needs to be solved within the production processes of companies. And by getting companies involved, we will be able to get plastics out of the oceans, keep them out of the oceans, and reduce this particular challenge for sustainable development.
Well, thank you, Francis, for joining us in our
Thank you.
studios.
Thank you very much.
That wraps up today's interview, but don't forget you can get more programmes like this by clicking back on Dukascopy TV. Goodbye for now.